There have been numerous stories of the evacuation efforts and how they are connected to communities across the country, one of which is a school district in California in which several families and students of the Cajon Valley Union School District were stranded. A majority of them have made it now out of Afghanistan, but still others remain. We're being joined right now by Dr. David Miyashiro. He is the superintendent of Cajon County Unified School District in California. Doctor, so good to see you. Thanks for being with us. Can you update us on the situation of those families?
This morning, I visited 8 students who have made it home from Afghanistan. Actually, in their classrooms today, it was joyful. And we also visited with their parents, who are extremely grateful. But we have 3 families that are still en route back to Cajon Valley. And at the time, we were excited because we're making such good progress this morning. We have 2 families that were left still trying to be extracted, and 1 that was at the airport. And I don't think, based on what we learned this afternoon, that they made it out. They were left behind.
And we were just listening into the Pentagon briefing from earlier. We've heard from Secretary of State Antony Blinken earlier as well that some 200 to possibly 100 Americans still remain. They don't have a precise number. And that very well includes these remaining members of your community, of your school community there. How are you doing right now? Are you hopeful? Because right now we know that the last soldiers have left Afghanistan. Are you worried?
Congressman Issa, who's been helping with his tactical team there, has some alternative strategies that we hope to learn about tomorrow. But the reality is that we had eyes on our 24 students because our family and community liaisons kept in touch with them through social media. The truth is there are probably closer to 1,000 U.S. children that are either American citizens or children of FIVs that are still there. And additionally, what the parents that we brought home today said that there are about 25,000 plus American citizens and SIVs that are invisible to everybody else, the invisible Americans whose passports and whose paperwork has been destroyed by the U.S. Embassy. So we've left, I think, 20,000 plus behind based on our estimates from people that were there on the ground, and people that are here trying to help them come home.
Now, that number is dramatically different from the official numbers we have been getting. We also know that a lot of the efforts to get Americans out have been centered around the capital city of Kabul. So that question remains, other places in the country, are there Afghan allies or U.S. citizens still in those holdouts, in those cities that the Taliban took over? Can you kind of, recount for us what their ordeal was, how they got out? Was it safe? Was it fraught with danger? Can you just kind of maybe anecdotally, what did they say about their passage out of the country?
Yeah, one of the 8th grade students I spoke to today, when I asked him, how are you? How did you make it home? Was it okay? His eyes showed just anxiety, and he said it was chaos. And his father said the same thing. The reason why it was such a concerted effort was because these are our former U.S. operatives that assisted as allies. So they're not safe to be out on the streets. They were extracted from their home by careful operations coordinated by our employees from Family and Community Engagement, and then Congressman Issa's team on the ground there in Afghanistan, and also at Washington, D.C. It was a very, very intense and dangerous process to get home.
And just let's go back a little bit, Dr. Miyashiro. Why were these families and students in Afghanistan in the first place? Had they been there for a while? We know we're just coming off the summer months and people are getting back to school, but why were they there in the first place?
Yeah, I think all of them were there to see their grandparents. So okay. When an Afghanistan person serves the U.S. military, the U.S. Embassy, and they get a special immigration visa to come here, they can only bring their children and their spouse. So if they wanted to have their children see their grandparents, and especially after the COVID long travel ban, of course you'd want to have your children see their grandparents. That's why they were there.
And can we kind of talk about what the school district is providing as far as support services to what has no doubt been a pretty traumatic experience for, mind you, like very, very young kids?
Yeah, our first ask was of the teachers to create a welcoming environment and to make it a non-event so that we can start having some normalcy for the kids. And we watched them, all 8 students today. They look happy as a clam to be back where they were, solving very complex math problems in a couple of circumstances. And our counseling team, we have a world of support around them, not just for the children, but also for their families. And we've been in contact with them all day today. We hope to have 3 more families home soon. And next steps are phase 2. What about our 2 families that have children that are still there and the 20,000 plus invisible Americans that we left behind?
Can we kind of just go into a little bit also just your efforts with Congressman Issa's office? You know, how responsive have they been? Are you getting constant updates, from the congressman in his office?
We've spoken daily, and we were in contact with his ops command 24/7 for the first 72 hours, trying to relay enough intel so that his team on the ground could find and extract our families that were there. And we couldn't be more grateful to Congressman Issa and all the U.S. military and operatives there helping to try to bring Americans home.
All right, and we will leave it at that. We heard from Secretary of State Antony Blinken today. Now that the military mission has drawn down, it has now moved into a diplomatic mission. So please update us here at Live Now if you do have any more news on the families from your school district that are still there in Afghanistan. We thank you for coming on the program.